It can happen tomorrow. Michal, maybe you text your number because we can. Maybe you'll try to learn tomorrow too. I'll try to do it in 45 minutes. We can start 5:30 Mishnah. They're dying over there. Their parliament has coronavirus, whatever this is called. In Iran. One of his advisors. Looking forward. I'm good. It's a fight. You got to beat up your body a little bit. All right, Eden, let's go. Let's go. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Shabbos Daf Gimel. We're going to be learning today the rule that Shmuel teaches us. Kol Peturei the Shabbos, Patur, Avol Asur, Bar Mahanitlas, like we mentioned yesterday on Daf Beis, that the wordings that are used in the Sechta Shabbos, when it comes to something that is prohibited versus something that's permissible, you don't have the typical two wordings, Asur Mutter, Chayiv Pater. The words will be Chayiv, Pater, Mutter. Chayiv means that you're Chayiv Midoraisa. Pater always will mean Patur avol asur, meaning you are exempt biblically, but you're liable rabbinically. And there are only 3 times where even though the words patur is used, it actually means patur umutter, that it's completely permissible. We're going to see that our Mishnah's cases are not included in the 3 that are the exceptions, but we're going to learn about the 3 exceptions. We're going to introduce and explain a little bit today the concept of melacha she'eina tzricha legufa, that if malacha is not done for the same purpose for which it was done in the building of the Mishkan, even though you are doing that actual act, you intend to do that actual act, but for a different purpose, as we'll explain later. So here there is a machlokes tanoim between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda holds that you are just as chayiv as if you did the malacha for the reason for which the malacha is done in the temple. And Rabbi Shimon holds that since it's malacha she'eina tzricha legufa, your patur avol asur, it becomes a rabbinic prohibition, no longer is it a biblical violation. We're going to be speaking a bit about the status of one's hand when one's hand is extended in a different domain, as we had many times over in the Mishnah, the ani de balabayis, that the status of the hand doesn't go after where the body is. On the other hand, the status of the hand doesn't take on the status of the domain in which the hand is in fully. It's like somewhere unique. And the application of those laws, we're going to be speaking about the domain known as a karmelis. In Midoi Raisa, you have a Rishus Harabim and a Rishus HaYachid. And true, Midoi Raisa, there is a concept called Makom Ptur, as we'll be learning a lot soon. But the rabbis added this other domain known as a karmelis. We're going to be learning inside Gimel Amud Beis Rashi's interpretation of the word karmelis, and then we'll learn, God willing, today the way Tosfos translates the word, the way the Rambam translates the word, all referring to the same type of domain. We're going to be learning on Daf Gimel, at least according to the Ran that we will quote, God willing, the concept of uvda dechoil, certain activities that are like called weekday activities and thus not to be done midrabanan. And we're going to be learning about the following concept, that when the Chachamim enact a injunction that one should not do something, question will be, if that enactment will stand, there's a high likelihood that a biblical violation will be done. So will the Chachamim suspend their injunction, right, preventing a biblical violation or not? Once the Chachamim make a takana, even if following through with their injunction, one thus will probably violate a isur midoraisa, that's life. The Rabbanan has to stand. There is a question about it. There is a certainty about it. And let us begin inside on Daf Beis, Amid Beis, by the two dots, right? 3 lines before the bottom of the Amid. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu malachei, shehakol niv'dvarei. Amen. All right. I think over here, since she sits over here, she'll be more comfortable over here. So, Amar leid Rav Masna labai. When we learned in our Mishnah, the Shtayim Shehein Arba, and as we explained, midoraisa, the violation of transferring is when you did both parts of the transferring, which is both the akira and the hanacha. If a person only did one of those two, that's the patur avol asur. They didn't violate biblical transferring, but they violated the rabbinic hoitzah. Now the Mishnah gave the cases where both the ani and the ashir did both. And what were they did both? Each one can be violating hoitzah biblically in 2 scenarios. Either when the ani standing outside, brings it in from the outside to the inside, or when the ani takes it out from the inside to the outside. 2 violations. The balabayis also has 2. But then, if you can just imagine each one of these 4 that we mentioned, 2 and 2 is 4, if you break it down into half, it becomes 8. How much is 8 and 4? 12. The Mishnah didn't give 12 cases. Like we explained when we learned the Mishnah yesterday, the Mishnah only spoke about the drabanans of the akira. The Mishnah never counted the violation of the one who only did the hanacha. The Gemara wants to know why. Tamnya Havyan. Well, there's indeed but only 8, which is the 8 the Mishnah gave, right? Each one violating 2 midoraisas and each one violating the akira part of the hoitzah. Why didn't you count all of them? And if you count all of them, you should have a total of 12. Responds the Gemara, according to your reasoning, if you want for the Mishnah to count all of the cases, okay, Chavre, let's remind ourselves of from the cases we had in the Mishnah, when we spoke about the ani and the balabayis, there were another 4 cases in which one of those 2 did not violate hoitzah, not even midrabanan, which would be, remember, if the ani, for example, puts his hands inside the house, but he takes the article from the hand of the balabais. He didn't take it from the ground, he took it from the hand of the balabais. The balabais did nothing, he stood there passively. There, the ani did everything. The ani did the akira, and then he brought it outside, so that's the hanacha. But the balabai should have been counted as someone who doesn't even violate it, not even midrabanan, because Itaka did nothing. No, it's from the 4 cases that the Mishnah mentioned, which you have one violating hoitzah, a midoraisa, it was always involving someone else. It wasn't an ani and the ground and the table, it was the ani and the balabayas. So if we gave 4 cases, so there must be those 4 cases. The other one who was completely passive should also have been counted. So why are you asking that the Mishnah should have given us a total of 12? Why didn't the Mishnah give a total of 16? Add the other 4, which in other words, add the other 4 cases where one party is completely passive, not doing not akira, not anacha, therefore they did nothing mutter.
The Mishnah is not giving just the cases that's chaya?
So says the Gemara, Amalei Halei Kasha. Bishlema, turning to Daf Gimel, Bava de Reisha, like we just mentioned, the 4 cases which one of them is violating Choitzah Midoiraisa. Yeah, 2 of the Ani, 2 of the Balabayas, and the other one was just passive. There, the Mishnah is not counting those cases, Shleimele, exactly because Pater Umutter like Tani. The Mishnah doesn't want to count a case where one party didn't violate anything, because they're completely passive. It's not a case. He did not the Hakira, he did not the Hanocha. Why would you count it? Ella, the question is, Bava the Sefer. The cases where the Mishnah is speaking about those who violated Hoitzah Midrabanan. Why did they violate Hoitzah Midrabanan? Because they did only half. And there, the Pater, Avol Asur. So here the Kasha is, you do indeed have another 4 cases, which are the cases of the one who only did the Hanach.
It's 12.
So that's back to the Kasha. Now, before the Gemara answers the question, the Gemara is challenging. Umi ike bekula Shabbos pater umuter. And when the Mishnah and Daf Beis use the words that we spoke it out, that one is pater, right? The Balabayas is pater, that the Ani is pater, and we said in the Mishnah that this is the anomaly, that in the cases in the Reisha where one party did both Takir and Tanach, the other party isn't really only pater. The other party is mutter. He did nothing, because in Shabbos pater means pater avol aser. So before we answer the 12, how can the Mishnah use the words pater? And then, like you're saying, it's not counted because it's mutter. Hold on. For ha'amar Shmuel, Shmuel gave us a rule that kol paturi de Shabbos. Whenever Chazal used the word pater in Hilchah Shabbos, it always means pater avol aser. It's pater midoraisa. It's aser midrabanan. Bar mahani tlas. There's only three cases where the word pater means pater and mutter. Before we count the 3, this is not from the 3. So how can we have a case where Rabbeinu HaKadosh writes the word in the Mishnah pater, and ataka means mutter, which is why we don't even ask why not 16. But hold on, the Mishnah used the words pater. Here you have more than 3 cases where pater means mutter. That's going to be the kash. So now we have to really answer 2 questions. Why didn't the Mishnah speak out all the 12 cases? Also focusing on the one who only did the hanacha. And how can the Mishnah use the words pater when it means pater and mutter? Or how can Shmuel say that labar mitlas, it should be labar from 4? You have another case where pater means mutter. But now let's learn the 3 cases, which is great. Now we start to accumulate Pashat Chazara for people who are learning the first time, various diverse Hilchah Shabbos. Number 1, Seidas Tzvi, trapping a deer. Let me give you the case of trapping a deer. There is a deer in a home, and let's say there's one door through which the deer can exit. If I will sit down at that door entrance in a way that the deer can no longer leave, not that it's harder for him to leave, not that there's a little opening and you have to have a lot of chachma to leave. No, that the deer cannot leave, I violated the malacha of trapping in the Beis HaMikdash. They would trap animals because there were many reasons for which they needed animals in the Beis HaMikdash. Now, Reuven sat down by the doorway. Right? If he did it the mezid, he's with hasra, so you have skila, kares, or b'shoigig chatas. Comes along Shimon, and Shimon sits alongside Reuven in a position that even if Reuven would not have been there, Shimon's body now also would have been stopping up, closing up the exit, thus trapping the deer. But the deer is already trapped from Reuven. So could Shimon sit there? So the Mishnah, Chazal used the words that Shimon is pater. You know what pater means? There, pater means not only pater, it means mutter. He did nothing. The deer was trapped. Not only that, just to know the din, that even if later Reuven stands up and Reuven leaves, so now it is Shimon sitting that is continuing the trapping of the deer. Shimon is weiter, pater, and means mutter, because he didn't actively do trapping. Now, what is Shimon doing? Just because he doesn't stand up and leave, that's not a maisa of Chilul Shabbos. So that's one case where even though the word is pater, it means mutter. There isn't even on Shimon's action of sitting alongside Reuven, a Chilul Shabbos, even not midrabanan. Case number 2. Seidas Nachash. Now, you're trapping a snake not because you want the snake. A person is trapping a snake because they are afraid that the snake might bite them. Now let's introduce the concept of malacha she'eina tzricha l'gufa. Being that we learned the lamates malacha is from that which was done in the melechas hamishkan, meaning in the building of the mishkan. There also, again, like we mentioned, there were animals that needed to be trapped. Let's say they needed to use the hide to build oil. So you needed to trap an animal. When they trapped an animal in the mishkan, they trapped the animal because they needed to use the animal. Here a person is trapping a snake, not because they want the snake, not because they want to use the snake. They don't want the snake to bite them. That's called, I'm doing a malacha, I'm intending to trap, but I'm not doing it for the same type of reason for which it was trapped in the Mishkan. She'eina tzricha l'gufa. Rabbi Yehuda holds, you're equally chayiv midoraisa. The Tana Rab Shimon holds, since it's she'ein tzricha l'gufa, it's patur aval asur. Rab Shimon paskins, it's asur midrabanan. Now, when it comes to trapping other animals, not snakes, for other reasons, not because you want them, it's takim alacha she'ein tzricha l'gufa, patur aval asur. But when it comes to a nachash, since there is a fear of you getting bitten, here, first of all, it's a midrabanan because she'ein tzricha l'gufa. Step number 2 is the chachamim b'chlal allowed you to do it. It's mutter. Why is it mutter? Because you are trying to prevent yourself from getting bitten. Because you have a reason. Now, obviously, we're not speaking about a possibility of getting bitten to death, because then we wouldn't need any of this. I wouldn't care even if it's a malacha she'tzricha l'gufa. But when the bite won't kill you, still a person doesn't want to get bitten. Right? Let's go today. You have in New York the bees in the sukkah. That will be a great example. Can you trap the bee because you don't want to get stung? You're not going to die if you're going to get stung. That's mamash mutter. If you are doing it, if you paskin like Rab Shimon by malacha she'ein tzricha l'gufa, that it's only pater avalas and midrabanan. So when it comes to you preventing yourself of getting bitten, the chachamim were lenient. You can do it lachatchila. The third case is mapis mursa. So mapis mursa is a person has a boil. Today you would call it a pimple. Now listen, I know that you have to get used to these terms. One of the lamates malachas is building. One act of building is creating an opening in order for things to be able to go in and out from that opening. When people have boils, I don't know if these are small pimples, these are big pimples, if an opening is created in order for oxygen to go in and out, and when oxygen goes into a boil, this type of boil, that will bring about healing. That is a bona fide isur midoraisa of boina. You're making an opening because you want for the opening to be used, not for people to go in, for air to go in. But if a person is popping a pimple on Shabbos, not because they're trying to heal it, it's not about the healing part. It's about you don't want the opening. You don't need the opening to stay there permanently. The pus is hurting you. It's putting pressure. You simply want to get rid of your tsa'ar. You don't care if right after the pus leaves, the opening closes and it won't get healed. So that's first of all a malacha she'ein tzricha l'gufa. You don't want the opening, you only want for the pus to leave. Here it's b'makayim tsa'ar. B'makayim tsa'ar, you're not even chayiv midrabanan. That's the third case where it's pater and muter. This, applying it to today, if a woman who is nursing, who has tsa'ar from having too much milk, whether you can, let's speak about a calf, we'll learn about this later. Taking milk out of an animal on Shabbos is called mefarek, which is a tulda of dash. We'll speak all this out later. But when is it a tulda de dash? When you want the milk. If you don't want the milk, you only want to alleviate pain, then first of all, it's malacha she'ein tzricha l'gufa. You don't want the milk, you just want to alleviate the pain. And whenever it's b'makim detzara, then it's muter. Which is how the halacha l'maisa today. So if, if a woman today is not going to be nursing a child, but she has to get the milk out of her body because she's in pain, then if she's not going to make use of the milk, and therefore it's malacha she'ein tzricha l'gufa, because of the tzad, it's muter. Some place can okay.
If you're making use of the milk,
then it's a problem. We'll speak about. We're going to get to later. We're going to get to all these things. Just these concepts are great. Bottom line is, here you have the three cases. And our Mishnah is not part of the three cases. Answers the Gemara. Listen, Chevra, this is Klalim. Ki itzrich leil Shmuel. When did Shmuel say bar mahani telas? When was there a need for him to say this? Peture de ka'avid maisa. All of the cases that we mentioned is where someone did an act. Shimon sat down. You understand? You trapped a snake. V'chulei. So here the chiddush is, even though you did something, I know that Shimon didn't affect the trapping, but he sat down, he did a maisa, and even though Chazal used the words pater, for the reasons what we mentioned, it's pater and even muter. However, p'tura deloi ka'avid maisa, what's our Mishnah's cases, the ones that we don't count? The balabais or the ani, they were completely passive. The balabais has something in his hand, the ani took it from his hand, the balabais did nothing. When someone didn't do any action, and the Tana says the words pater, and we know it means pater and muter, of course it means pater and muter. It's not a chiddush. That Shmuel doesn't even have to address. Ikatuva, the truth is there's even more than our Mishnah. But we don't even call it an exception because it's not part of this type of rule. So therefore we resolved the 16. We resolved how this does not contradict Shmuel, but we're still stuck to the first question that really, since the Mishnah gave 4 midoiraises, each one of those 4, if one only did one part of it, 4 times 2 is 8, so there should be another 8. So there should have been a 12, and the Mishnah only counts 8, because the Mishnah is not focusing at all on the one who only did the hanacha. Why not? Answers the Gemara like this. Just making a hanacha chevre is asur midrabanan. Make no mistake. The Mishnah didn't count it. Why? One who is violating a rabbinic hoitzah, which is only doing half of it, which is only doing the akira. But the one who did the akira, since he already did half, or she already did half, if they were, God forbid, to do the other half, they would be chayiv chatas. The Gemara, the Chazal always prefers saying chayiv chatas, because we're not speaking about a Rasha, Oto Berisha Askinan, that's violating Shabbos, for which you chayiv kares. Because normally chayiv chatas means d'oraisa, even though the Chazal could have said chayiv kares, or chayiv skila. But we prefer not to speak about a b'mezid nikah. So coming back over here. So one who can come to a chatos, which is the ones who only did the akira, because if they would do the hanocha, they would take be chayiv chatos, then kochashiv. But the lo yasab the chayiv chatos, like the Mishnah is not speaking about such a case. But make no mistake, the one who only did the hanocha is equally also chayiv, not chayiv asur midrabanan. It's used to the word. So it's chayiv, asur, and mutter. Period. And now the Gemara wants to stand something. If you have an act of transference, which is comprised of akira and hanacha, and taka, one person didn't do it, 2 people did it. But if 2 people did it, one the akira, Reuven did the akira, Shimon did the hanacha, the act of hoitzah was done. And we are saying now that no one violated an isur midoraisa, right? Each one only did half. Why not? Why don't we say either that together they have to bring a carbon chatas, or at least the last one should bring a carbon chatas? Really, the question is, how do you look at a violation of Shabbos? Are we looking on what the person is doing, or are we looking at what was accomplished by the person's doings? If we're looking at the outcome happened. The violation happened. What, no one is going to be liable for that outcome? Okay, 2 people did it, so again, somebody should have learned both of them together should chip in for the chatas. Or at least the last guy, akira was done already. I know, I'm doing it b'mezid. I'm doing a hanacha. I should be chayiv. If I did it b'shoigeg, I should be chayiv chatos. Frek the Gemara, shnei p'turim, v'ha isavi the malacha mi benayu. Between both of them, the malacha happened. Answers the Gemara, Tanya, indeed, Rebbe Omer, when it says in Parshas Vayikra, when the Torah is giving us all of the various scenarios where someone is only chayiv chatos, and the Torah begins that im nefesh achas techta b'shgaga ba'am haaretz, by committing ba'asoisa achas mi mitzvahs Hashem asher lo yiseyosena. So here there's a drasha that the word ba'asoisa, ba'am haaretz ba'asoisa, take that word divided into 2, which is ba'asois oisa, when you did it, when you did all of it. No, it's God is hinting, ha'oisa is kula, that is where you chayiv. B'shoigeg chayiv chatas, that's in the parsha of chatas. But v'loy ha'oisa es miktsasa, if you only did part of it, even if you did the latter part of it, your act completed the act that's prohibited, but you didn't do all of it, you're not going to be liable for a chatos. Yachid v'asa oisa chayiv, shnayim v'asa oisa p'turim. That's some of the Rechiv and the Rabban, not only are they not chayiv chatos, but they may not bring a chatos, because we came off kachim. If someone is not obligated, then it's not holy as a chatos, and then you're bringing chulin into the azara. That's why if a person even only has a suffix whether the chayiv chatos, they may not bring a chatos unless chatos oif. Okay. This is called the draw. That's okay. Just to know, this is a good question. People are starting. Whenever Chazals bring such a pasuk, there's a question whether that's midoraisa or whether that's an asmachta. Now here it's not relevant because here we're for sure it's an asmachta would mean it's only a midrabanan. This is not a din derabanan. This is a din Torah. But it's good to know just because Chazal bring a verse, it doesn't always mean that this is a midoraisa. Here it is. Now who said it to Rebbe? And now the Gemara says itmar nami. Whenever the Gemara begins with Tanya, with Tanrabanan, with Tanina, right? These are all words that connote we are quoting a Tana, whether it's a Mishnah or a Braisa or a Tosefta, it's a Tana. Whenever Chazal begin with the words Itmar, Itmar means we are starting to quote what's called a Shmaitza, which is a conversation of Amoyroim. And here we have a big anomaly. Normally, when an Anamoida says something, then the Gemara is going to say, you know what, you're right. You know how we know you're right? Because we found the same thing somewhere in a Braisa and a Tosefta. You know what, Zatana is a proof for an Amoida. Normally, we don't go the other way around. Rebbe said what we just learned. And now the Gemara says, Itmanami, that we also learned by Amiroyim, that Amar Abchia Bar Gamda, that you should know that Nizre Kamipi Chabura, that there was a teaching that came out unanimously from the whole Chabura. We just learned in Brachas the importance of learning in a Chabura. And Va'amru, everyone said it. No one argued that when the Torah says in the portion of Vayikra the word Ba'asoisa, that word is a composite of Ba'asoisa, teaching you Yachat Sh'asa Chayiv, Shnaim Sh'asu, Peturim, and indeed Toisvis, the third Toisvis before the bottom of the Amid is like Tema. He brings the Maisa Siyaita Mishmaitza Lebraisa. So first of all, Toisvis says that must be the Chabura was of Tanoim. And here Itmar is an anomaly. Then he says, no, that sometimes you can find the fact that everyone in the Chabura agreed to it. So it's not just Rebbe. Also, there's an interesting lashon that Nizre Chamepi Chabura, to me, sounds like they said it as a Beruach HaKodesh. Like it was thrown out of their mouths. Oh, you know, if people speak Beruach HaKodesh, it's like God is saying, a Baskol is coming out and saying what the Rebbe said is Taka Emes. Okay, just one detail on this. You know when we say that Shnaim Shasu Peturim, if me and you carry a pen out, God forbid, since I could have carried it by myself, you could have carried it by yourself, we did it together, we're not chayiv midiraisa. Or if I did akira and you did the hanacha, God forbid. But whenever we are carrying an item that one person is unable to carry it by themselves, the only way to transport that item is having two people involved. There, it's different, and we'll learn about these dinim later. Okay, weiter. Boy minei Rav from Rebbe. Right, Rav, who later went to Surah. We know Rav, aside of we quoted the Seder Hadoides, but Rav, as a child, learned in Eretz Yisrael. And one of his teachers was Rebbe. So Rav once asked from Rebbe, what did we learn in our Mishnah? Nachamal, the Mishnah gave various scenarios where one is interacting, taking from, putting on the hand of his fellow. And we're going to speak out cases of the Mishnah, we will see. One thing is clear, that when my hand is not in my domain, everything we're learning about hand is when one's hand is extended into another domain. So either the ani that is standing in the Rishus HaRabim, his hand is in the Rishus HaYachid, or the Balabayis who's in the Rishus HaYachid, whose hand, the status of that hand, right, is not fully like the status of where the feet of that person is, as we'll speak out in a moment. That's clear from the Mishnah. But now let me ask you another question. Reuven and Shimon. Reuven picks up foods or drink or anything else, and he puts it on Shimon's shoulder. Who did the actual Akira? Reuven. But in the Rishus HaYachid, he put it down on Shimon's shoulder. It's not in Shimon's hand, it's on his shoulders. And now on Shabbos, Shimon walks outside. V'hoitzian l'chutz. What's even the question? I'll tell you what's even the question. If the act of Hoitzah is comprised of a Akira and a Hanacha, did Shimon do a Akira? Maybe Bechlal no Akira was done. Is walking an Akira? Maybe an Akira means you have to actually pick it up. We'll see how this relates to the hand in a second. Mahu. Do we say Akira's Gufay, Akira's Chayfetz Mimakaimai Dami, that the fact that he began to walk, that is an act of Akira, and therefore Shimon, who both did an Akira and did an Hanacha in a case where he walked out and he stopped or he put it down, so he's Chayv Chatos, Chayv Midoiraisa, or Dilma, that in a case where the beginning of the movement began with walking, maybe walking is not called an Akira. So there was no Akira done. Now, he's Asur, because he's doing a Hanacha. He can't do that midrabanan, but he won't be Chayv Chatos. Amalei, to which Rebbe responds to Rav, he's Chayiv, Shimon in our case is Chayv Chatos. And ve'ein doimel liyadai. Let's read inside Rashi. That's the key over here. 4 lines before the bottom of the Amid. Ve'ein doimel liyadai. What case? Hapshuta lifnim. The ani has his hand extended inside, and the ani's hand is lachutz. One of the cases of the Mishnah was that the Balabayas put something on the hand of the ani. What did the Mishnah say? Is the ani chayv chatas in this case? No. The hand went from inside to outside. So you would argue that just moving the hand is not called a hanacha. And if that would be the case, then you can argue if something is on the shoulder, walking outside is also not, moving the hand is not called a akira. So moving the body should not be called an akira. Rebbe says, don't make that mistake. Weiter in Rashi. Moving your hand from inside to outside is not called an akira. And if that's the case, why is walking outside called an akira? My tama, look inside the Gemara, the last line. Because gufay noyech. Akira means that something began at rest. And akira means that you uprooted it from its rest and you began moving it. When a person's body is standing here, since they are now stationary, so the item is at rest. And therefore, beginning to walk is an act of akira. You uprooted it from its rest. When one's hand is in a different domain, and this should be repeated 1,000,000 times, not my hand in the same domain, but if I am, in this case, the ani is outside, he's in the reshus, his hand is in the reshus hayachid. You can't consider his hand stationary. Because since it's in a different domain than the body, it doesn't go after his feet are stationary. But when the hand is in another domain, we view the hand, we look at the hand is not in his domain. So since the hand is not in his domain, so what it's floating. So and it's not so therefore the hand is not at rest. So if my hand is not at rest, nothing on my hand is at rest. So when the ani moves his hand outside, he did not make an akira. He made an hanacha, but he didn't make an akira. Yadai loy noyech versus the shoulder. It's not about the shoulder and the hand. It's the shoulder and my feet are in the same domain. My feet are standing, so my body, which is in the same domain as my feet, are resting. So my beginning to walk is a act of akira. Turn it up. Dav Gimel Amud Beis. This is Gavaldik.
And he would be chayiv in that sense.
And therefore he would be chayiv.
Chayiv what?
Chayiv chatos. If he did it b'shoigeg. Did it b'mezid, chayiv skila.
Only for the akira.
No, we're speaking about a guy that walked and made a hanach. Question is there an akira here? So Omar lei Rab Chia, right, the uncle of Rav from both sides, to his nephew Rav, Bar Pachasei, we had this lashon in brachas, Ben Gedolim, you son of nobles. He began with a compliment and then he criticized him. Lo yaminulach, did I already not tell you that Kikoi Rebbe Bahai Masechta, that when your teacher, in our case Rebbe, is learning one tractate, don't ask him from another Masechta. Then, when Rav asked that question from Rebbe, they were not learning Shabbos. Why did you ask him a question about Shabbos? Because the teacher might not have that topic fresh on his mind. And the lav, the Rebbe, Gavra Rabbahu, indeed, Rebbe is Rebbe. If not for Rebbe being the great Rebbe that he is kasafte, you would have ashamed the teacher. Because perhaps the teacher, because he's not on that topic, would have given you a wrong answer. However, hashtab, you should just know, indeed he gave you the right answer, and I'll prove it to you from a braisa. The Tanya, if a person already had food and drink on their shoulders before Shabbos, and they walk out on Shabbos, they make the hanacha. The question is whether there's an akira. Says the braisa, like Rebbe Chayev, and look at the words in the braisa. Which the braisa is already acknowledging, don't come and ask me a kasha from our Mishnah. Now there's one important point that Tosfos makes on the top. One thing, if a person has something on their shoulders, in their backpack, in their pocket, and before Shabbos came in their Reshus HaYachid, they are walking, then that item is not noyech. It's not stationary. So if they are walking and walking and walking and walking, and then at a certain point they walk outside and they make a hanacha, they won't be chayiv chatos. Because the definition of an akira is that you are uprooting something that is stationary. If a person is in one domain and their hand is in another domain, even though this person is taka not walking, but since the hand is not in the same domain as the body, even though the body is stationary, here we don't view the hand as part of the body. And therefore we don't view the hand as stationary. So when the Balabayas put it in my hand and I took it outside, I only made a hanach, I didn't make an akira. And now a lot more about this. We have to move. Amar Abayim. Pshitali. It's clear to me from our Mishnah that Yodai Shel Adam, that the hand of a man, when it is not in the same domain of the body of the feet, Eina, it's not viewed not like a Reshus Harabim, nor like a Reshus HaYachid, meaning, regardless whether the body is in the Reshus Harabim, or whether this person is in the Reshus HaYachid, and the hand is in the other domain, regardless, the hand is never considered to be part of the domain of the feet. How do I know this pshita from our Mishnah? From the case of the yadai of the ani, the case where the balabayas removes an object from the ani's hand, right? And in other words, the ani had his hand extended into the Reshus HaYachid. The balabayas removed something from the ani's hand. What did we learn in the Mishnah? The balabayas is not chayiv. Now, if the person's hand would halachically be an extension of the person's feet, then even in the case where the ani extended his hand inside, when the balabayas took it off his hand, the balabayas should have been chayiv chatas. The Mishnah says he's not. Why not? Because he didn't do the akira. Why not? If the hands would go after the feet, and the ani is outside, then we should view the item as if it is still the Reshus Harabim. Likewise, the opposite. If the feet are in the Reshus HaYachid, and the hands are in another domain, also loy damya, because miyad the balabayis. The hand is not considered like in the domain of the Reshus HaYachid from the other case in the Mishnah where the ani removes an object from the hand of the balabayis that's extended into the Reshus Harabim. There we learned again, the balabayis has his hand outside, the ani took it off the hand of the balabayis. Each one was chayiv, each one violated the rabbinic, the asr. But hold on. The balabayis' feet is in the Reshus HaYachid. If the hands would be nigrar achar gufay, then the ani taking it off the hand of the balabayis should be tantamount to him taking it out of the Reshus HaYachid. So clearly, the hands that are in the other domain don't go after the domain of the body. However, Abaya, here is the question: Yadai shel Adam ma'u shetiyasa kekarmelis. Do the Chachamim penalize? Do they give a knas? Do they kanse and say that one's person's hands should be considered like a karmelis? Let's read inside Rashi to get the words for the question. Look inside Rashi. Boy Abaya. Hashta de chazin on the lav basa gufa shadin and leili ingen ichayuve mido eiraisa. Alma, in other words, if lig reshusa, the hand, when it is in another domain, is considered in its own reshus. Mi achmor, Rashi explaining the kasha here, Allah rabbanan lemehavi karmelis. Do we say the Chachamim will now rule that the hand has the status of a karmelis? Meaning, here's the case: the heicha the hoishet yadim leil reshus acheres. If someone extends his or her hand outside, let's speak about a person that's indoors, and right outside their window or the door is the Reshus Harabim, and someone extended their hands outside. What are we saying now? If my hand goes after my body, if I'm standing indoors, even though I extended my hand outdoors, then we would say the items in my hand are still in the Reshus HaYachid. But now that we established that my hand in the other domain is not in the same domain as my body, and therefore, if I extend my hand outside before doing anything, what did I do? I did an akira. An akira is asur midrabanan. So maybe Chazal, to penalize me for violating an Issa Darabanan, will say, now your hand is a karmelis. And what were to happen if my hand is a karmelis? Then I would not be allowed to bring it back, because a karmelis is a domain that neither to the Reshus HaYachid nor to the Reshus Harabim may anyone ever transfer from the Reshus HaYachid to our karmelis, comes Reshus HaYachid, Reshus Harabim to our karmelis, comes Reshus Harabim. That's Issa Midrabanan.
But if he puts it down there,
then he's violating Stoiraisa. Very good. Oh. So again, then lo yachzirena etzlo. And what should he do with the kach peshut? And he should have to keep his hand extended. These are one of the old punishments from Cheder. Pick your hands up, pick your hands down, stand in the corner. This is like, stand in that position, acha techshach. That's not a good punishment, but that's what happened. The Ma'aseh Shehoyah. The kivan, the lav, basa, gufa, gereira, it's all based on the pshita that Rabbi. Since the hand is not considered part of the domain of where the feet are, so maybe nasis la reshus acheres midrabanan, the gazer reshus midivreim l'shabbos, she'asa l'hachras l'oitzim imenu l'reshus yachad and or l'reshus arabim. And the Chazal call this domain a caramelis. Here we have Rashi, Gimel Lamed Beis. The word caramelis, Rashi, comes from a pasuk in Yeshaya, where it says, Ya'arai v'karmeloi, a fertile field. A fertile field is a field that no one is allowed, the rabbim are not allowed to walk through it, and even a yachid won't make use of it because it's fertile. It's a domain in Yiddish, nishtaher and nishtahen. Not used for the rabbim, not used by a yachid. That's Rashi here. From the pasuk, Ya'arai v'karmeloi. Toisvis on daf vav, and 2 daf ahead, it teaches from a Yerushalmi, the word karmelis comes from a composite of rach umal, a kernel that's soft and roundable, but it's not fully dry, nor is it fully moist. Nishtaher and nishtahin. The Rambam says the word karmelis is really a slang from Armalta, from an almana. An almana, again, nishtaher, and she was already married, she's not a psula, but she's not an eishesish. So there is this type of domain that midai raisa, it's not at a reshus harabim. It either would be at a reshus hayachid or a makom ptur. The Chachamim gave it its own status. So the question of Abaya is, back over here, do we say, based on the premise that putting my hand outside is an act of akira, which is a isur midrabanan, so now the Chazal can go ahead. Now, if my hand is not a karmelis, then I would be allowed to take it back inside. If my hand would be a karmelis, I would be allowed to take it back inside. Even though I did an akira, taking it back inside is what? Don't forget that the isur of transferring is to do an akira and a hanacha from one rishus to another rishus. If I'm beginning inside and I'm taking my hand back inside, that second act per se is violating nothing. It's not even called a hanacha. You get that? Because the definition of a hanacha isn't just physically that something was put down, that it was placed down in another domain. Indeed, many poskim say that if you're walking on the street today and you find something in your pocket, you know what you need to do? Don't stop, but go back to the place where you came from. Then for sure you didn't violate anything because the akira you did already, but then you're not going to be doing a hanacha. So coming back over here,
if you take it out while you're walking, there's a thing there also, like as you're walking.
Why? Then you're doing
Because if you stop, that's hanacha.
Correct.
If you're still walking,
that we just learned that from. That's what we just learned. That's what we just learned in Tosfos, that if a guy's walking, okay, right. So that's the kasha. So inside the Gemara, mi kansur rabbanan lahadura legabe, did the Chazal penalize you, not allowing you to bring your hand back in? The only reason why it would be yasir in the question is because if we were to paskin that the hand is a karmelis, or no, you taka violated an isur, you did an akira. You did an akira again because my hands in the other domain is no longer in the domain where it came from. So I made an akira from the Reshus HaYachid to the Reshus HaRabim, but there's no kanas, and therefore you can bring it back inside. So says the Gemara, Toshima, comment here, we're trying to resolve Abaya's inquiry. We're going to quote 2 braises that contradict each other. It says in the braisa, Hoysa Yodim Aliyah Peiros, mamish our case, your hand is filled with produce on Shabbos, or we'll see soon. Your hand is filled with produce, and v'hoitziel l'chutz. And you extended your hand outside, you didn't do any hanacha as of yet. Tanach. We're going to call this Braisa number 1. It says in one place, number 1, Asur, Lachziro. You have to stand the whole Shabbos, like the Chacham that you are, with your hand outside holding produce. The Tanya Idach, it says in another Braisa, Mutar Lachziro. So we have 2 opinions. And my love, that's the 2 Braisas. Mar Sovar, Mar Sovar, one Tana will hold the first one, Kekarmelis Damia, Asur, to bring it back. Umar Sovar, Lav Kekarmelis Damia. Even though you should not have put your hand outside, shouldn't have done it, but if the Chachamim didn't cancel you, declaring your hand to be like a Karmelis, to have a status of a Karmelis, then why would you not be able to bring it inside? Mutalakzi. Says the Gemara Lloyd, no, not necessarily. And I can reconcile both Braisas by saying that either they both hold that the hand is like a karmelis, and I can also reconcile both prices by saying that both of them hold that the hand is not like a karmelis. Let's start. We're going to have a total of 5 different approaches. Look, Tkula Alma, one side will be, everyone holds it is like a karmelis. And now the question is, why wouldn't Braisa, if it's like a karmelis, how can Braisa number 2 say, Mutalach Zero? Ulay Kasha, Kan, the first Braisa, we spoke this out in our intro, that a Reshus HaYachid goes up until the heavens. The halachic domain of a Reshus Harabim only goes up 10 tvachim. So now like this. Lemata ma'asara. Again, the word akira, you have to get this. Akira, I know I didn't do a hanacha yet, but if I pick up something in my house, I didn't do an akira yet. So if my hand went lemata ma'asara tvachim, which means my hand is no longer in my domain, but where is it? It's now in the domain of a Reshus Harabim. Oh, so I violated midrabanan akira. And once I violate akira midrabanan, Chazal give me a knas and they declare my hand to have a status of a caramelist and therefore I cannot bring it back inside. But Khan, the second braisa, is where I extended my hand, Lamay Lamasaram. Lamay Lamasara Tvachim is called the Markan Ptur, which means that if I put my hand in a non-domain domain, then I didn't even do an akira. And since I didn't do an akira, then why would I get a knas?
So that for sure, if you're putting it outside the window.
Very good. So that, just to know that
there's no akira if you picked it up in your house.
that's what we're learning right now. That because that's the definition. Because if I pick something in my house, Danny, and I never walk outside, I never did an akira. You think about it, these are deep concepts. The definition of an akira isn't only that I picked it up from a stationary position, but it's only called an akira once it is already in another domain. Before it got into that other domain, you can't call it an akira. Think about it.
Even if the ant is older, like you pick up something to eat, so it's like it's in your hand. You took it from a shisa yof to a caramelist. If the ant is
No. The hand would only be a caramelist if you violated something, and it's a special knas to call it a caramelist. And furthermore, when your hand is in your domain of your body, it has the same status of your body. The whole sugya of yada here, when a pshita labai is only when the yada is in another domain. Let's move. And both braises, and therefore you made an akira. Both braises will hold that the chachamim did not cancel you. Your hands is not like a caramelist, and still v'loy kasha. The braisa number 2 that says you can bring it back in, kan mi ba'oid yoim. You know when you extended your hand out, mi ba'oid yoim, gavaldik.
Right.
Before Shabbos, before Ben Hashemashah. So you did nothing wrong. Kan, the first braisa is speaking about mishach hashecha. Now, mishach hashecha doesn't mean that since you did something wrong, they penalized you by declaring your hand a caramelist. No. Right? Idi, v'lav, it's not a caramelist. Let's read it. Nevertheless, you can't take your hand back inside. Mi ba'oid yoim loy kansur abanan, because you did no active akira. All right. Now, truth be told, even mi ba'oid yoim, you should have retracted your hand before Shabbos, but that mistake was a passive mistake. You should have done something, and you know what you did? You did nothing. So it's a lesser of a violation. You didn't do a violation of akira, but still, if you have your hand in another domain, don't begin Shabbos that way. Don't forget, if you were to put it down, you got a problem. At least the midrabanan hanacha, don't leave it, bring it back inside. But your sin is a passive sin, and therefore loikon surabanan. But if you extended your hand out here after it got dark, no one is debating, based on our Mishnah, that since your hand is in another domain and it's lamata masara tvachim, you did an akira, so you did a violation. So Kansur Rabbanan, the Gemara is arguing, don't declare the hand a caramelist. It's not a caramelist. Even if it's not a caramelist. The Chachamim says when you did something wrong, stand with your hand extended the whole Shabbos. As a punishment for you doing it without declaring it into a caramelist. Hold on. The Gemara, what kind of logic is that? The logic should have been the opposite. When a person extended their hand before Shabbos, now again, they should have retracted it. It's not that they did nothing wrong. If you want to cancel them, now is the time to cancel them. Because if the Chachamim would give a knas to such a person, there are two things that might happen. One thing what might happen is the person will leave their hand extended until the moment that they physically cannot hold on to it anymore. And then when they drop it, they didn't do an act of hanacha. They couldn't. But then you can have a person that can still hold on to it for another 10 seconds, but he says, you know what, I had enough of this, I'm throwing it down. If a person were to do it that way, the question is what's going to happen? So if a person extended their hands, and even if they're going to say, you know what, I'm throwing it off my hand, they won't come to be oiver isur midoraisa, because then they only did the hanach on Shabbos. The akira was done before Shabbos. But if a person extended their hands once it got dark, here there's a counter logic. the Chachamim should not penalize the person to keep the hand outside, because that penalty might lead the person to be violating Yisur Doiraisa. So they're liknisur Rabbanan for the passive sin of not retracting it before Shabbos.
What would be this in their eyes?
If I did the Akira, but if I extended my hand after it got dark, means I did an Akira. And then the Isha delay, if I will throw it on the street. I should stand with my hands extended for 24 hours. So again, there's a possibility that it's going to fall already ba'oinus. That's not a problem. But it won't happen that way. It's going to come a point that I'm going to get frustrated, I'm just going to throw it out. And if that were to happen, then I'm going to be chayv chatos. So maybe in such a case, loy liknesu rabbanan. That's a reason for me not to get penalized. Now, the Chachamim who gave this second resolution didn't think that way. The fact that no one thought this way, that in itself resolves an inquiry. Says the Gemara, why don't we, by the fact that this logic is not taken into account, why doesn't that resolve tifshoit, a boya of Rav Bibi bar Abaya? The boya of Rav Abaya, listen to this chevra, hit big pas betanur. If a person wrongfully on Shabbos Chodesh stuck a dough of pita inside the walls of an oven, as they used to bake in the days of Chazal. They didn't put it on the ground, but they would somehow stick it onto the walls or the roof of an oven, and taking down such a bread on Shabbos, which is known as Ridias Hapas, because you took it off the wall, taking it down, is asur under, the Ran says, under the prohibition of Uvda D'Chayil. It's a weekday activity. Now, here's the kasha. The person who stuck the bread in the oven. Now, first of all, baking is an isur mid'oraisa. Here we're speaking about a person who did it b'shoigeg. Interestingly, even though they did an act of baking, when will they taka be mechoyev chatos? Only once it breaks. Whatever that halachic definition of it's baked. Before that, they were not allowed to do it, but they didn't yet violate an Isser Dorais. So do you have a good solution? Let the person take it down. But the Chachamim Bechlal said that if a person put bread in before Shabbos, you can't take it down on Shabbos, uvda d'chayil. Means there's a rabbinic violation of Ridias Hapas. So he asked the question, what happens if a person, b'shoigeg, put bread in on Shabbos? So now the question is, do we say that let us take away the Isur D'Rabbanan, because there's an advantage of at least we can guarantee that this person won't come to the Araisa? Or do we say, once the Chacham made a Gzeira, the fact that if we're not going to give up on that, he's going to be Mechoyev Achatos, tough luck, you shouldn't have done it. He had that question. Now the question is, why don't we resolve, this really resolves that inquiry, because what is the logic that we are offering? That if a person extend their hands, Mishach HaShecha, so they violated an Isur Midrabanan. Here we cancel him, even though the Knas will lead to an Isur D'Oraisa. We don't care. If you did something wrong, you are penalized. If you did something wrong, you put dough b'Shabbos, you're not allowed to do it. You did it b'Shabbos, you're not allowed to do it. So hold on, let me just take it down. No, the Chachamim don't give away their takanas, their gezetas, even though it's going to come to a chatas. So why did he have an inquiry? We see from the fact of their approach that this should be resolved. So the Gemara says, indeed, from the fact that they did that the logic was not considered fakert. We said Mishach HaShecha, you have a knas, you can resolve that boy. Or v'ibay yisema, no, that you can't. Nothing can be learned from our braises as to the boya of Rabbi. Lo'olam litifshay and v'loy kasha. Kan, second braisa, person extending their hand, they did it b'shoigeg. And kan, the first braisa did it b'mezid. And now the Gemara explains b'shoigeg, if a person extended their hands on Shabbos, loy konsur rabbanon, because the act was done b'shoigeg. Hold on, putting on the bread in the oven was also, we're going to read the Rashi and we'll continue, God willing, the next step. But the mezid konsur rabbanon. So let's look at Rashi 7 lines before the bottom of the Amid. Mamash Gavalik. B'shoigeg le konsur rabbanon. So hold on, the case of Rav Bibi, isn't that a case of shoigeg? Or maybe the Rav Bibi was speaking about a case of a mezid? So Rashi says, no matter what is the case, whether a person put the bread in the oven, b'shoigeg or b'mezid, you can't learn anything from this brayso, says Rashi. The Rav Bibi loy tifshet ma'achem, loy lisa v'loy leheter. Tahai de loy konsua b'shoigeg. What's the case? You put your hand outside with produce on it on Shabbos. Lav mishum chashasha dil mashadam yadahu. Ella mishum dali avadi surah b'mezid. If a person only did an akira, and he didn't even do a b'mezid, it means he violated an isur midarabanan b'shoigeg, and the chazaras yadai einoi afilu shvus, like we said, taking your hand back in isn't any violation because you're taking it back into the same domain from where you took it out. Unless you would give a knas. So the Chachamim didn't give a knas. Because what happened? You did a rabbinic violation, b'shoigeg. Aval ediyasapas, taking bread down, we're not speaking about the act of putting bread in the oven, whether that was b'shoigeg. Taking bread down is already an isur midrabanan. Agavaldik. The diyasapas shvusi. And not only shvus v'nigzera b'minyan, there was a gathering of the Sanhedrin and they took a vote and they ruled that the diyasapas, right, is also midrabanan. Let's go with Tanan because it's called Uvda Dechoil. Umishum kaidim shiyavada dechiv chatas. I take it down because if you're going to leave it up, now the guy is going to bake on Shabbos. So what? I'm sorry. Just because we want to prevent him from being over on the Isur chatas, loy batruk zeirasa. Can compare to our case. Here, taking your hand back in is not a violation, which is why you're allowed to do it. And furthermore, says Rashi, why didn't you say that by the fact that we are resolving the state on the Braisas, that if you extended your hand b'mezid, you're not allowed to take it back in. So why don't we say that should prove that if you put the bread up b'mezid, you can't take it down? Not true. I can even argue, perhaps, that even if I extend my hand b'mezid, I'm not allowed to take my hand back in, but if I put up bread in the oven b'mezid, maybe I should be allowed to take it down. Why? The Hassan leka lemechesh dilma lishdinu she's chayv misas basin. When Chazal says, I extended my hand, keep your hand out for the whole Shabbos. Is it certain that I'm going to break the Shabbos? No. Maybe I'll be able to hold it the whole Shabbos. So when they gave me a knas, they're not condemning me to a vadai chilul Shabbos midoiraisa. Listen, it might fall out of my hand because I have no koyach. That's not an act of a hanach. But by the case of the bread, if a person put bread in the oven, if you won't take it down, vadai, there's going to be a chiyuv chatas. So maybe the Chachamim here will say, take away the Isur Midarabanan. So therefore, Rav Bibi's case cannot be resolved not from neither Braisa, and now we have other ways, we'll continue tomorrow, of resolving the stira between these two Braisas. So what do we need? We need another 5 minutes.